Hang on, make it live, mate. Go now.
I think Hayden's handed out press releases to everybody. Look, I'm just here to inform you that last evening I accepted Sir Martin Weaver's resignation as the chair of EQC. This followed a meeting on Wednesday and correspondence last evening where I had spelt out my ministerial intentions to appoint an independent ministerial advisor into EQC to directly advise me on the settlement of the remaining 2,600 Canterbury claims. That one of the things that I've just done is been speaking to the staff in there and given them my reassurance that I have, with our new plan going forward, utter confidence in them that together we can settle these claims. I have spoken to Mary Jane Daly, who is the current deputy chair of the board, and asked her to step up for the next couple of days to be the acting chair. It's my intention next week to appoint an interim chair while we sort through governance arrangements at EQC. I've also spoken to the Chief Executive, Sid Miller, and I'm confident that working together that we have a plan where we can get the kind of movement that we need to see to get these remaining claims in Canterbury that are still there 7 years on, that we have a plan to get these settled, and that is my key priority.
How would you characterise these claims?
Sorry?
How would you characterise the claims that are still outstanding?
The outstanding claims are largely re-repairs. So one of the concerns that I have is whether that is the end, of whether that is the total number that will be coming in. That is a number that obviously moves around as further re-repairs are found. So I characterise them as serious and needing action, and I think we're putting in place a plan today where we will be able to settle those claims.
So are some of them first time?
First time re-repairs?
No.
These are the 2,600 are re-repairs.
And in terms of Sir Martin leaving, I mean, specifically why? Did he outline reasons to you?
Well, I think Sir Martin has put out a statement. He offered his resignation and I accepted it. It was after the conversations that we had around my intention to appoint an independent ministerial advisor into EQC, reporting directly to me.
Are you happy with his performance over his tenure?
Look, what I'm happy with now is that we have a plan going forward. I think EQC has had a difficult job to do here in Canterbury. That what we have now is the job that needs to be done is to settle the remaining 2,600 claims. And I'm confident that I can work with the staff and with the board and that we can get the resolution that Cantabrians need to get their homes fixed and hope back in their lives.
How's the senior management team responded to your plans?
I've had conversations this morning with Sid Miller, the Chief Executive. He's on his way down to Christchurch now. I'll be talking with Sid further today, hopefully, and we've also signalled that we will be having a meeting early next week.
But what, I mean, I assume you've discussed your plan, or he must be aware of your plans in terms
He
of
has. And I have confidence that I can work with the senior management team to put in place the changes that are required for us to settle out these remaining claims in Canterbury.
What is it that an independent ministerial advisor will be able to achieve that Sir Martin Weavers wasn't able to?
So the Earthquake Commission is, of course, a Crown entity. So what I require is the confidence around the Canterbury claims, where I have some more direct advice coming directly to me as the Minister, rather through the mechanisms that you work through in terms of a Crown entity.
That signals that the system's broken down, though, doesn't it? You're supposed to get that advice from your officials.
No, a Crown entity is slightly different. So Treasury is the monitoring agency for the Earthquake Commission. What I'm doing is putting in a ministerial advisor who will fulfil that function that doesn't normally happen in a Crown entity, to give me, as the responsible minister, the direct line of sight I need to make sure that we can get the resolution for these people.
So are you saying that EQC sort of been operating a bit independently from the minister up until now?
Well, that is the nature of a Crown entity. And the way that it is set up. That is the way it should through its board. So there is no problem with that. It's just that I have reached the conclusion that I, as Minister, need a clearer and more direct line of sight into the settlement of the Canterbury claims. It would come as no surprise to anyone that I do not think that this is happening fast enough.
What sort of advice have you had around how large these re-repairs and additional claims could actually become? I mean, we've got nearly 3,000 now, but have you got advice that it could grow?
Well, as I said, that number around re-repairs does move around because it's people come in asking for their original repair to be looked at, and then it needs to be assessed. So we do see quite rapid moving. I, of course, as the responsible minister, have to contemplate the scenario that that number could grow. But one of the things that the independent ministerial advisor will be accompanied by is actually some people from Treasury having a look at and assessing the liabilities both for the private insurers and for the Crown that sit within EQC. So a good audit of what those liabilities may be.
What would you say Sir Martin's done well during his tenure?
Look, we have obviously been through a very difficult 7 years. There's been a large number of claims, and it hasn't just been the Canterbury earthquake sequence. I think we have to realise just in the this last week, we've had cyclones where a number of communities will be putting in earthquake claims as well. So it's been quite a volatile 5.5 years when Sir Martin has been at the chair, and I acknowledge it has been a very difficult time. So he has shepherded the organisation through that.
And in terms of things he could have improved on?
Look, I have never made any secret that I have wanted to see fairer and swifter resolution of the Canterbury earthquake sequence this far on, 7 years out.
Have you got any reason to expect to be dealing with the resignations of other senior members of staff? Has there been any indications that they would look to move on?
I have had no indication of that. I am the responsible minister, and that's why I took the action to appoint someone in there, an independent ministerial advisor, who can independently report to the person who ultimately the buck stops with, and that is me as the responsible minister, and why I am determined to make the necessary changes so that we can get resolution for these 2,600 people. These are 2,600 people and families who cannot get on with their lives 7 years on, and for me, that is not good enough.
What is good enough then for you, Minister? How quickly do you want them resolved? Give us time.
I want to see the fair and swift. I will be working with the independent ministerial advisor when they go in around developing timelines. One of the things I need to have more clarity around is what is possible, the changes we can make, and how quickly we can get this done for people. I will be working through that next week with the independent ministerial advisor once they're appointed.
To what extent is Sir Martin Weavers to blame, though, for the slow pace of these claims being settled?
Look, anyone in a leadership position, myself as a responsible minister, I'm saying I take ultimate responsibility for the fact that we do need to see change around this. I think anyone in leadership position always knows that they need to take responsibility.
But you weren't there when these claims were being settled at a slow pace, were you? So who's responsible for that?
No, I'm not saying I take responsibility for this. I'm saying I've acted today because I do have responsibility. I'm 120 days into the job of being the minister responsible for the Earthquake Commission. It is my assessment after those 120 days that the necessary change that is required in order to get the swift and fair settlement of those claims has not occurred.
When did he resign?
He verbally offered me his resignation on the phone last night, and I received a letter this morning. And I have accepted that resignation.
So it was essentially, it was the appointment of this advisor that was the problem for him. Is that right?
We had a meeting on Wednesday morning when I informed him of my intention to appoint this independent ministerial advisor. I informed him formally of that by correspondence last evening.
Who is that advisor going to be?
That will be announced next week.
So once you informed him of that last evening, what was his response to that? That was when
following receipt of my correspondence, he rang me and tendered his resignation, which I accepted. Is that all?
One other thing, Minister, if you've come in and you've torn up contracts for the Metro Sports Facility, you've now accepted the resignation of the EQC chair. What's next? Who's in the gun next?
Look, as the minister, I have a responsibility to make sure that we are making the changes that are required to swiftly and fairly settle earthquake claims here in Canterbury. I have always made it clear that I'm not content to come in and keep doing the same thing and expect a different outcome. If changes need to be made, then I'm prepared to make them.
Are there enough staff at EQC to do this work? We've had some redundancies recently. Should they have happened?
That is the kind of detail that I'll be asking the independent ministerial advisor to advise me on. That's exactly the kind of information that I need that clear line of sight on.
Chairman Weaver stepping aside is the right thing to do?
Sir Martin offered his resignation and I accepted it. Okay.
Any other areas of focus for you?
in terms of
for the advisor.
I'll be having those discussions both with the Chief Executive, the Acting Board Chair, and it is also my intention by mid next week to have appointed an interim chair so we can sort through the governance arrangements, and I will be discussing exactly these details with them.
Any progress on this inquiry into EQC?
Yes, the board have been sent the draft terms of reference. The public input closes today, so we're making good progress around getting the terms of reference for the independent inquiry into EQC to be established.
Did that have anything to do with Sir Martin Weaver's standing down?
Sir Martin tendered his resignation upon receiving receipt of a letter from me that outlined my intention to install an independent ministerial advisor.
Before the receipt of that letter, did you speak to him verbally about your plans?
Yes, I met with him on Wednesday morning, and I informed him personally of my plans to do that on Wednesday morning.
How would you describe his response? How did he feel about those plans?
Look, it's usual for a minister and a chairperson to have that kind of conversation. We met briefly for 20 minutes, and then we had a meeting with officials.
But how would you describe his response?
He had some questions, and he took some time to go away and consider it. Okay. Thank you. Cheers.